Hi, I'm Samantha Cunningham, and this is my 422 response to weaving technology with education for CI 2300. So, first thing that caught my attention in this article was how they're focusing on technology in the teacher as opposed to technology in the student, which of course everyone would naturally think it's more about technology in the student and how they're going to benefit from it. But in order for the student to get to that technology, they have to know how to use it, which you need a teacher for, and the teacher can help scaffold and teach the student how to use it in beneficial ways. And the teacher can use that technology as an advantage in their classroom to further benefit educating their students. So not necessarily teaching students how to use technology, but the teacher themselves using technology in the classroom to make learning more interesting, fun, or easier. The quotes where they were talking about the computer will very probably revolutionize teaching within a decade was funny to me because I think when the computer first came out it was a really big deal, and I think a lot of people were expecting it to just blow up and kind of like robots were taking over and we don't need teachers, we have these smart boxes that can tell us everything ever. And it reminded me of this one quote that was, what would be the hardest thing to tell someone from 200 years ago? What would be the hardest thing to explain to them about modern day? And it was, I have something in my pocket, a cell phone, or actually a smartphone, which can access any information known to man easily within seconds, and I use it to look at pictures of cats and to do social networking. So I think what people thought the computer was going to end up doing, like teaching students how to do everything in the entire planet without the assistance of a teacher, actually turned into a bigger distraction and way to get around things without actually doing anything. And it's definitely not the tool that I think all these quotes were talking about, which I just thought was funny. Definitely is interesting to see how people first see things and how they actually end up years later. Which also reminded me of the chalkboard, the whole section on the chalkboard, how that came out and that was actually a pretty big deal and people didn't know how to implement it into their classrooms at first. And for me, like a chalkboard, that equals classroom. Like that has always been a part of the classroom. I never would have imagined like a room without a chalkboard or a whiteboard. It's so basic to me, which is kind of putting things in perspective for the future. Will a computer become that basic staple in a classroom? Like my kids will grow up and they'll be like, well, just not having a computer in your classroom, that's like so weird, which is how I would feel if there wasn't a chalkboard or a whiteboard in your classroom. So it's interesting that something so simple to us was so magnificent and technological to people back then when it first came out, which is actually pretty cool to think about, but also kind of scary when you think about the future. And that reminds me of the whole argument of will the computer replace the teacher, and I just think that's absurd, which he talks about at the end of the article. You can use it as a partner, a way to help you, not necessarily a crutch, but definitely a tool that can help you teach in new different ways and help apply information to students and help them grasp the concept better or something like that. So definitely not going to replace the teacher. You need the teacher to use the technology in the classroom and help students learn through that, but a computer cannot teach a student. Like, how is a student going to read if he's never been taught? You can't use a computer if you don't know how to read, and you can't turn on a computer without having someone tell you how to do it. And I just think that's completely obvious that it can never replace a real live person teaching you something. And there's something completely different about human interaction with a person and a computer, and that will never be replaced. I don't care what happens in the future, that can just never be replaced, no matter what you think. The chalkboard in the classroom was just, it keeps coming back to me because it was just very, very interesting that it's so simple, and they just kept wondering, people wouldn't use it in their classroom because they didn't know how to use it or didn't know how to use it in their lessons, which is much like my teachers with computers. We would have access to computers, but we never used them. And even as a student, I didn't feel like it was necessary to use a computer. I felt like I could get all my lessons done, get all my work done without it. But the thing that I liked most about computers is having them after school, which I think will be really important when I teach, is having the access to a computer after school to be able to do your homework there, look at emails from your teachers, look at syllabuses online or syllabi online, and be able to type out any kind of paper or work that you need to do. But I still am uneasy about having that kind of technology in the classroom. Simple technology like PowerPoints or interactive videos, I guess. I don't know. It's definitely going to be a challenge for me to see how I'm going to work this into my lesson plans, but I'm sure that's how people felt about the chalkboard, and they definitely weaved it in and made it a staple in their classroom. So I'm very interested to see what will happen with the computer and how it will become a staple, if it does. I think it's very likely that it will, and I'm still not sure how to feel about it or what to expect in the future with computers in classrooms, but I'm hesitant for the future of classrooms, but I'm also looking forward to seeing what it'll be and what it'll bring. And hopefully it'll only improve education instead of hindering it or replacing teachers, because then none of us are going to have a job, which would be really sad. And that's pretty much what I got from the article.